ever gotten the ick?
Ick.
You know that feeling that sometimes your date or your partner did something to make you internally say yuck? But who knows if it's a passing thing or you'll get over it or it's the beginning of the end. In this video, I'm diving into the all too familiar topic of the ick. What is it? How is it related to your attachment style? And what can you do to have a better dating or intimate relationship? Welcome to Reality TV Therapy with me, Dr. Diane. Hi, welcome back. I'm Dr. Diane Strakowski, the Back to Love Doc. As you know, I analyze reality dating shows, and it was in Love is Blind recently that I had heard and was reminded of the ick, and I said this would be a great video topic. So what exactly is the ick? It started a few years ago because it just became a popular term, but it's that feeling of discomfort or aversion towards your partner, oftentimes triggered by pretty much anything. It could be really insignificant. It could be as small as you don't like the way your partner chews their food,
You eat with your mouth open.
or the way that they smell, or it could be as fundamental as having a difference in values, something that's really the beginning of the end. Whatever the case, though, it's important to address these feelings early on to prevent them from escalating or leading to resentment in your relationship. So first off, let's talk about what does the ick actually look like. Body language experts would say that usually it's a flash. You can see it on a person's face. That's what a flash is. It's like a quick eye roll or a lip smack or that look that Taylor Swift had when Travis Kelce sang in Viva Las Vegas at the end of the Super Bowl. I did a whole post on this because I thought that was a perfect idea of her getting the ick. Taylor was like, And sometimes we purse our lips or even scrunch up our face because we're trying to hold it in oops, I don't want to say anything. It could also be associated with that nose kind of wrinkling that you have, a little bit of a sign of disgust. So those are facial expressions, but then what about the body? Can you read somebody's body language? Are there any other clues or sign that a person got the ick? Well, it could be something like folding your arms oh my God, I can't believe that. Often on the face, usually one is leaning back because when you're interested in someone you're leaving in, your body's saying, I'm out of here, I'm leaning back. And what's really important in relationships, I always say this in dating, and it's fascinating when we have Love is Blind that reveals, watch where the person's feet are going. That's a true sign they're either interested in you and they're pointed straight on, or they're pointed like this or like that, and that means where you're headed. The body always gives a tell, either in a facial flash or in body positioning that tells you a sign or a clue that someone might be having the ick. When can a person get the ick? I think there's a few different ways. Let's start with the dating phase. Say you're on the dating apps and you swipe and you think, ick, ick, ick.
Swipe, 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 swipe.
It's a common pattern that the profiles are not quite right. You are somebody that we would call a picky person.
You're too picky.
Yeah, if you...
In fact, maybe your friends have even said this about you, that you're just too picky. But my question for you is, what are you hiding behind? I want to analyze what else might be going on. And as it relates to the attachment styles, the avoidant person, who I also lovingly call independent Isabel or Ian, they're usually most often the most picky of people. And again, it could be silly things. They don't like that somebody drinks with a straw. They don't like how somebody looks. They don't like someone's cat or dog in the photo. But don't fool yourself. The avoidant person, oftentimes there's something bigger going on about not giving somebody a chance. But the second time that the ick can happen is early on in your relationship. Say your date or the person that you're intimate with, they do something that disagrees with you. You suddenly notice that they eat with their mouth open, or they have an annoying habit that bugs you and you cringe internally. If you recall, back to Love is Blind, it was in this season, season 6, that it was Laura who was talking about the ick. In fact, she was with Jeremy and her parents were over and she was mentioning how she got the ick with Jeremy wearing Hawaiian shirts and something else, but it is a common colloquial phrase. And the parents were like, what is this? They weren't entirely surprised, but Laura is, in my estimation, an avoidant person. And I think she was finding fault with Jeremy. Now, the third time when the it can happen is in a long-term relationship, right? You're grossed out by your partner or frustrated or resentful. Obviously, you spend more time with this person, you become more aware of their quirks and habits. What once seemed cute or even endearing may now just irritate the crap out of you. But the mistake that I see couples make at this point in long-term relationships is that they think that this behavior, their partner, whatever they're doing, say it's Travis Kelce and he's singing Viva Las Vegas, the person makes the mistake of thinking that this is a reflection on them. And therefore they're like embarrassed. Oh my God, I can't believe you did that. Now the question is, what can you do about it? Can you get over the ick? This is the bomb. Here I want to give you what I call my relationship RX. And I'd like you to pull out your handy dandy journal. If you don't have a journal, it's time to get one. And what I'm going to ask you to do is you have to be honest with yourself, because if you can't be honest with yourself, who can you be? So often what happens is our unconscious mind, I'm going fast, I'm on a date, I'm with my partner, and things are moving quickly, and I don't have time to internally summarize what is actually going on with me. Because in a relationship, you don't have control over what your partner does or their habits. So you can say, well, if I bring it up, I don't want my partner to do that anymore. And we're going to get to that. But ideally, I need you to be looking at what is the meaning of this behavior that is so problematic to it. I pull out my little mirror at this point, and I have to look at myself and say, okay, what does this mean? Say you're dating and you're easily rejecting people. Again, you're swiping through, you're swiping left on everyone. I'd ask you, so what are you hiding? What am I avoiding? What is the harm of giving someone a chance? Might I be pleasantly surprised? But ultimately, if you're the avoidant person, you might be hiding behind your fears or insecurities. If you're the anxious person, you may not have as many icks at this point. We'll get to that in just a minute. But are you projecting your fears onto your partner? This is where it's so important to write things down. So in my journal, I would say something like, the other day, I got the ick. What might be going on with me? Okay, looking at yourself. Do you have any fears or insecurities that you're projecting onto potential partners? Say this was Laura. Okay, Laura comes across in Love is Blind as a pretty competent, pretty self-assured. I mean, some people have called her harsh, but I wondered if Laura isn't hiding something. She has her own vulnerability. She worries that, yeah, things are great now, but once he really gets to know me, he'll reject me, or once he really finds out that I'm really quite difficult, or that I'm super picky about a lot of things. And so suddenly she's now getting the ick. Really, the work is to say, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of being trapped? Am I afraid of telling my fiance about, I don't know, my debt or my sleeping habits, or that I have these silly quirks, this routine that I do before I go to bed? Am I worried about their reaction? What's going on? So that's what I want you to do. I want you to start paying attention to the ick and what's going on with you, because this video is about how to be a better partner. And it starts with internal insight on your part. All right, now let's talk in a long-term relationship. You realize that your partner is not perfect. My caveat to you is to choose your battles carefully. What about this attachment style? When it comes to attachment styles, they can look a little bit different. As I said, the avoidant has a fear of not wanting to be trapped. And the ick could be like, ooh, this relationship is either perfect and I'll stay, or it's not and I'm going to leave, because heaven forbid, I don't want to be trapped with the wrong person. But underneath the fear is fear of conflict, that they might fear or worry about giving somebody feedback. Either I should love them unconditionally or I should leave. And the avoidant, or I call independent person, feel had to be vulnerable. What I have to question you is, say you're the avoidant person, to what end? So you think that you're not letting your partner know about the icks is actually really going to help. But your relationship isn't progressing. In fact, it's halted because you're holding back. Remember, the body knows what's going on with the mind. So my challenge to you is, what's going to happen when you don't bring things up? How are you going to solve the problem? Now, I want to pause there and say the anxiously attached person might think something quite different. Okay, if I'm an anxiously attached person, my fears are different. My fear is one of rejection or abandonment. I might actually not have as many fears sharing, but I might fear that if I tell my partner, they will abandon me or reject me. So sometimes I might beat them to the punch, which might look like self-sabotaging, something that Chelsea's doing with Jimmy, right? So we throw up lots of flags to sort of like throw somebody off. Now, what would be the relationship RX for a person in a relationship? Here's where we're talking about self-improvement, and it all comes down to good communication. You have to reflect also on your own behavior. So take a look at yourself, open your journal, and ask yourself, what's going on here? And do I have any fears about communicating? What is getting in the way? But I really want you to say you have to be careful about how you communicate. And this is where I would say choose your battles carefully. I want to give you an example of the ick. And this is a little bit embarrassing, but this comes from my own personal relationship. And for the sake of transparency, I oftentimes like to use myself, not my clients, as an example. But recently, well, last summer, I had surgery. And since that time, somehow my breath had gotten particularly bad. I hadn't noticed it, of course, but my husband did. And he said to me, Diane, something's happening lately, but I just need to tell you that your breath is bad. My first thought was like, oh my gosh. It's kind of like when you have spinach in your teeth. You're like, why didn't you tell me sooner? How long has it been there? I was very self-conscious. But here's the thing. My husband doesn't complain very often. So I knew I had to pay attention. And in fact, I then, immediately started brushing my teeth using breath mints. But then I even Googled it and said, surgery, your microbiome, does something change? Could there be a reaction to something? And sure enough, I found out that there was. And suddenly that made me feel better. Of course, I still worked with trying to solve the problem because then I didn't want anybody else to think that I had bad breath. But my husband brought it up in such a way that he was empathic. He didn't go, ew, oh my God, your breath smells. That would have been a turnoff. But he brought it up in the way that I want you to bring it up with your partner without blame or criticism. Talk about the ick, because if you don't talk about it, how can you fix it? Thankfully, he did. I want to also emphasize that the icks are going to be less when you feel like there's a lot of positive in your relationship, right? When you are prioritizing your relationship and you're spending quality time together and you're engaged in activities that you both enjoy, you're nurturing your connection. And therefore, you're going to look at this and say, yeah, sure, I've got a couple of icks, but it's nothing compared to how I feel about my partner. In summary, the ick is a common dating woe, something that many of us face, but it doesn't have to define your relationship. Most importantly, take a look in the mirror. Do your work. Write it down in your journal. Shift to looking at yourself and what's going on instead of what your partner is doing. And then if you need to, communicate in a way that is empathic, that shows that you care, but also that you have faith in the relationship that this can be fixed. So let me know in the comments what you thought about the ick. Have you ever had it yourself? Has your partner ever had it? Have you overcome it? And please let me know your other relationship and dating questions. As always, leave a comment, like this video, and please subscribe for more of my Relationship RX series. Thank you.